You're listening to the Clutter Fairy Weekly, a weekly webcast and podcast brought to you by the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas. If you'd like to participate in one of our live webcasts, please visit cfhou.com/weekly. You'll find a calendar of upcoming webcasts, as well as instructions for joining the Zoom meeting via the app or by phone. We'd love to see you. That URL again is cfhou.com/weekly. Now here's the weekly episode. Enjoy.
Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for March 31st, 2026. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody, again. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is the webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life that you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep.
If you're new to our Zoom meeting, we want to let you know that you can share your comments and questions via the chat, and I'll try to make sure Gayle addresses them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment yourself via audio or video. And we are streaming the webcast live on Facebook, we think. And so you can share your questions and comments there, and I'll relay them to Gayle, which reminds me that I have to actually, go there and launch that window if it's
verify that it's working and
going.
We want to be able to see your chat comments in there.
And it looks like we're good. It looks like we are actually going on Facebook. We usually start our show by following up on our last weekly tittle assignment, but we didn't give you one when we met 2 weeks ago. But we'd still like to hear from our participants in Zoom and on Facebook. What decluttering and organizing projects have you been working on for the last couple of weeks? Please let us know in the chat. We love to celebrate our audience member success stories. YouTube viewer Carla Q3Y shared this progress report on one of our recent videos. Carla writes, "We finally sorted the shelves in the cellar. A lot of tools my husband couldn't remember why we kept them for 20 years. So very happy it got done today."
And that's exactly the kind of project we're going to talk about today, too. Shelves in the cellar are out of the way and easily ignored without impacting anybody too much. But what a relief to get it sorted, thinned out for things that are no longer needed, and organized to be useful when you need to find a tool for a project. I was curious how long it took to do it with the two of you working on it. I'm always curious about the execution times. So congrats on getting that done. And if you can, tell us in the chat how long, if you're here, tell us how long it took to do it. That's one that will feel awesome. Every time you go into the cellar now and you have to get something, you'll be able to walk down there and you'll go, oh, look at this space that we organized. Isn't it beautiful? Because it won't be, you don't use it very much. You won't be walking by it very often. It won't be changing. And so you'll be able to go and admire your work all the time. It'll be wonderful. Good for you.
Jacqueline reports, we finally got a few weekends that weren't cold, so we got to start on the spring yard cleanup. We also did some cleaning and decluttering in the garage.
Excellent.
Working with someone else can be a challenge. His method is very different from how I would have done it on my own. Look how nice and empty the garage looks, he says, except all the stuff is now in the driveway. At least some of the stuff is trash, recycling, donations, and items to sell, so it's not all staying. And we did have people come and give us money and take away items, so it is going well.
Hey, that's cool. I mean, I will tell you that when I work on garages with people, because you pull everything out on the driveway in order to clean, in order to sort and whatever, you don't do it inside the garage, you end up pulling it all out. And then people think you're having a garage sale. And so people stop by a lot and they're like, are you having a sale today? No, we're just cleaning the garage. But then, if you have things that you want to give away or sell, you can leave them at the the end of the driveway, sort that stuff towards the end of the driveway. So if people stop by, you can go, well, I want all that stuff to go. And sometimes it'll walk off. So, you can be selling at the same time as you're working on the garage. That's so funny.
M reports, if yesterday's corrections are right, my taxes are done. First time ever before April.
Oh,
nice.
That is a whoop-de-da. Good job. 2 weeks early, too. Today's the 31st of March. You did good.
Congrats. And in that calendar vein, Pat says, every item I own now has its own home. April Fools. A day early.
That is super funny.
Uh,
Yay! Congratulations.
Connie reports, I decided to ask a friend if she'd be willing to help me clean our windows, spring cleaning, and she said yes. So I have to move all the plants for Thursday so we can get to them.
Oh, that's cool. I'm glad you recruited some help for that too. That's wonderful. And then you get guys can have lunch together. You can, sit around and have a Coke on the front lawn or something if you want. You can entertain yourselves with the windows and then you can sit around and chat. That's lovely.
Brenda says, my old two-bedroom townhouse is now empty. Unpacking it new
Oh,
place, trying to get items out as needed, maybe get rid of even more. One bedroom downstairs, yay.
that's awesome. Congratulations. Yes, now you get to adapt to a new living environment, a new situation, a new layout, and how wonderful. And if you took something with you because you weren't sure if you'd need it, and if you build out your apartment and you feel like, hey, I have this stuff and I really don't need it for this space now. It doesn't work in this apartment. Then you can do round two or three or four, that whatever round it is of things you given away. Feel free to decide that it doesn't work in this space and you can release it now. And that would be awesome. You don't have to find a storage place for it if it's not something you're going to use in the new space. This is the point at which you make those decisions. You don't know when you're leaving the old house what exactly will work, but once you get there, you do know what'll work. And if it doesn't work, it can go out.
I like the idea of trying to get items out as needed. If you
Mm,
have, if you have the space for the still packed boxes, and if you have the patience to live with them for a little bit.
yeah, to wait
Um,
until.
I remember we talked to I think I think it was a participant in a Zoom meeting a few years ago telling us that she moved and she left all of her kitchen stuff in the boxes and only unpacked it as she needed it.
Oh,
And so ended up getting rid of a bunch of stuff that she never used
right.
because
Identified all the
she
things that
never
never
went
actually
back
came
to
up.
never came out if it never came out of the boxes, it didn't get put away in the kitchen.
Oh, if you can live with that
It's
level of
that's
disruption for a
the
little
issue.
while.
Yeah, you have to live with the mess for a while.
Yeah, yeah, but what a great idea. I like it.
Naomi says, I decided to get rid of my printer. I use it so seldom the ink just dries out. It
Oh,
is still sitting under my bed, hoping to be adopted by another home, but the area beside my desk is now clear.
hey, that's cool. Because printers are big, man, and they have a big footprint, and they are large and in charge where they're sitting. Like you can't
Right.
miss them, right? So I'm sure that's a big empty space that you cleared that way. Good job.
And she says an unexpected side effect is that I have also cleared a whole shelf of various formats of paper to donate.
Oh, there you go, right? Because you stash paper to put in the printer. So good job. Good for you.
Oh, and Connie says the minimalists just suggested doing the, unpack it only as you need it.
Mm-hmm.
Pretending you're moving, pack it. They suggest packing everything up and then pre,
In place.
in place and
Yeah,
then,
yeah, yeah. I've heard that.
yeah. Mhm. Joella says, I'm decluttering papers as we speak in the apartment. Oops, jumped away from me. In the apartment so I can get to doing taxes. I am getting help from a neighbor whose part-time job is professional organizer. And
Oh, excellent.
we talked to Joella last, 2 weeks ago, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
the week before.
Yeah.
Um, and we started working on my storage the weekend before, and I am also decluttering the garage when the weather is pretty nice and decent, and in between any free hours of time that I have.
That's
Nice.
awesome. It sounds like you're diving right into the project and hitting it from multiple angles. And I'm really glad you brought in somebody to help you with the paperwork so that it's not it won't all be your burden and it can go faster and cleaner that way. That's a great place to make use of your friend who's an organizer part time. Awesome.
Nina says, I've donated so much since listening to these programs on Spotify. Thank you for all the inspiration. Now, if I can just downsize my 25 shelves of garden design books and 10 shelves of cookbooks and a linen closet filled with sewing supplies and yarn. And then she ended
Right?
that with dot, dot, dot. So, you know, there may be, who
There
knows
may
how
be
much
other
is hiding
collections.
in that ellipsis.
Right, right. Well, and you remember Bob's golf book collection?
Right. An entire
in
huge
in that
long wall.
house,
Yeah.
at the end of their dining room was a floor to ceiling bookshelf that was basically built in for that whole wall.
Mhm.
And it was 100% filled with golf books because that was what he did because he traveled a lot for work, and he would go to bookstores and collect golf books all over the country and all over the world. And so it was his, I'm traveling by myself for work, I'm bored, I'm going to go after dinner and go to a bookshop kind of entertainment that he did. And so he had a lot, 25 or 30-year collection of books. And then when they went to go move and he was going to retire, and she retired, or they were close to retirement, and they
Right.
were bought their next house, he was like, "Yeah, I don't really want to take these with me." So they made arrangements for the whole collection to be donated to a university. And it was amazing. Like, he collected it, and it was something that he did. And then he was like, "Okay, now I'm not gonna. I don't have to travel. I'm retiring. The entertainment factor of collecting these books we're at the end of that." And
Yeah.
so he was able to just jettison the whole collection. So if you have a lot of gardening books, you may want to contact some like gardening clubs and see if they have libraries where they stash books about that, and see if you can, send large quantities of those gardening books off to some place that people are going to use them.
Yeah. He donated the golf books to Rice University, and
Mm,
I don't know, what
they
will
installed them
become of them,
somewhere.
but they put them, yeah, they accepted the donation. So,
Well, and the thing about it, it was a curated collection that was 40 years old. Like,
right.
it had 4 decades of people writing books about golf. And so
Yeah.
it was like this time capsule of stuff going on in the golf world, and it was like there was some value in the fact that he had gone to all the trouble to spend 4 decades accumulating it. And so
Yeah.
from that standpoint, I'm sure it had some historical interest to people who are into golf, right? Like,
Right.
it must have been a fascinating collection for people that are focused on that.
Pat says unpacking as needed would mean all my baking supplies go away. I have space for them, but never use them.
Yeah, you could probably think about baking as we tend to have more supplies than we actually need, right? And so just in general about any category. But so if you occasionally bake, or if you don't bake very much, or you just aspire to bake but don't actually do it, maybe you can go, okay, if I was just going to start out baking, which 5 things would I keep, and maybe all the multiples can go away, and
Yeah.
I can keep the possibility of baking with a much smaller collection of things to work with, and I can release the rest of this stuff to somebody else who's actually doing it.
Um, some good comments on that one too. Brenda says, I no longer I no longer have an oven, but big toaster oven that has space in a drawer that fits my speed these days. Only used
Mm.
oven twice a month. Um, and M says, I am thinking of boxing up my beautifully organized baking shelves to unpack as needed because I need space for other projects.
Mm.
It's good to, face that your needs change and your the ways you spend your time change.
Yeah, and your interests evolve over time, right? And I think if you do that, and be careful about where you put the stacked boxes so they're not in your way. And if you end up putting them someplace like the garage, then invest in some boxes that are plastic with lids so that they can be, safe outside
Right.
while you're
Tightly
waiting to unpack
tightly
them.
fitting lids. I would
Hmm.
add, specify tightly fitting lids.
Yeah, that snap shut for sure.
Naomi says, but I did use that spring form pan in 2003.
I'm sure you did. And you could probably consider that he's retired now. If you have not been doing your work since 2003, I think that means that the Springform pan is retired, and it needs to go to a retirement community and not be in your kitchen.
Um, Jane in California says I did something similar with my kitchen. Most of it was boxed up for a kitchen remodel. Once that was done, I took things out of the boxes as needed. A
Mm.
friend of a friend ended up taking most of what was left following a kitchen fire. Jane has been with us for a long time, and I'll bet Jane was whose story I was remembering.
Oh, really? Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay, we should probably
Okay.
stop talking about kitchen baking stuff. and move on to our main topic.
Okay.
Many of us have a place that serves as a last private refuge for clutter. Junk drawers, inaccessible closets, spare rooms. We use these spaces to conceal stuff from our families, our guests, and even ourselves.
We do.
Today, we're going to explore hiding places for clutter and offer tips for reclaiming your personal space of shame, that's in air quotes, as a usable part of your home.
When Ed suggested this topic, we realized the last time we talked about it was 2014. Frankly, that's too long for a topic that's very common for anybody who struggles with managing clutter. All of my clients have a place that's unmanaged, unorganized, with things just randomly dumped there to keep the contents out of sight. Whether it's as small as a junk drawer in the kitchen or as big as the basement, the principle is the same. This place is perfect to stash things I don't want to look at, deal with, or let others see in my house. The parameters are the same regardless of the size of the space being so used. Can I dump things haphazardly without any thought and close it behind a door so nobody can see what's inside? Then that qualifies as your personal space of shame. Again, the air quotes. So, what exactly is a personal space of shame? The best way to identify one is by your reaction to it when your guest or your mother-in-law comes over. Do you immediately slam the door shut so no one can see in there? Do you use it to hide things that you don't want others to see or that you don't want to deal with yourself? Do you think of it as a storage place instead of a room in the house? The same is true for the garage or a junk drawer or a random hall closet that you make sure others don't access. If you're hiding it from persons other than yourself, it's probably a personal space of shame. So we need to give you a disclaimer here. We're trying to say we use this phrase personal space of shame because it's catchy and it serves as a convenient shorthand for a variety of spaces. But we recognize that shame isn't a particularly useful or constructive emotion in the decluttering process. An undeserved sense of shame is emotional clutter. And we hope that you'll let go of any shame that you're carrying around with you. We know it's actually just some piles that need attention. And when you focus on it, the space will be, once you focus on it, the space will be reclaimed and no actual shame is needed to be carried over on something like this. There's no point in being embarrassed about it or being worried about it or being ashamed of it. We all do it. It's all a coping mechanism and we can just treat it like that and move on and deal with the project. So we're making a joke about the personal space of shame, but we're not actually suggesting that you carry shame around this. We're just trying to be silly and, create a shorthand. Okay. So let's talk about what types of spaces qualify for this. They can range from a junk drawer or a single cardboard box that you've ignored for years to a whole second home where you hide all the stuff that doesn't fit in your primary home. And there's a bunch of examples I have from working with clients. A random hallway closet where all the move leftovers got parked. I have a guest room closet with things I haven't dealt with yet. The horror, right? I'm so bad. It was stuff that I packed. So in theory, because I did a whole lot of decluttering before I packed up. So it was stuff that I packed with the intention that I thought I needed to keep it. But I haven't unpacked it yet because it's not part of my daily life. So it's in that guest room closet waiting for me to decide it's a project I'm going to unpack the rest of the way. It's literally the only boxes left in my house now.
Excellent.
There's parts of the laundry room that get used as a storage area, often because of the random cabinetry that's awkward to reach and to use. You know that you have the washer and the dryer, and then they put standard cabinets up over them, except that you have to stand on a step stool and reach over the washer to get to it. Like, they're super awkward, and so they're not really very good for daily use. And so they end up being a storage area that becomes sort of a hiding spot that people use. The mudroom's a good example. A mudroom is designed for outdoor gear, shoes, backpacks, etc., and to be parked there. But other things slowly start to join them. So if you have kids running through the mudroom with their backpacks and they do what kids do and they like throw everything off, and in theory they get it on the hooks and maybe they get the shoes where they're supposed to go, but not always. But then all the other things that they have in their hands get dropped in the same place too. And so you end up with a whole lot of other stuff. You come in with things. You're shedding things anyway, and so then you end up dropping other stuff in the mudroom too. and sort of leaving it there. And so it's designed to be functional, but the proximity and the time where you interact with the mudroom sort of makes it conducive to becoming a dumping ground, a storage area for stuff that you don't want to deal with in the moment. And then the mudroom becomes a disaster.
Right.
The attic in the South, an attic is a space that often gets used as a dumping ground, or a basement in the North. If you live in the north part of the country, you probably have a basement in your house and you use a basement, the cellar she was talking about earlier. Both rooms are not intended for daily use, really, but for access to other systems of the house. So it's like, you need to go into the attic in order to get to that. That's where the AC unit or the hot water heater is hanging out or whatever. Like there's other things that make the house function that are in the attic and the basement. And it's a room that's really, it's there. It's
Ripe for exploitation
it's right for that's a
as a
perfect
junk space.
description. It's there's a floor on it and it's inside the house, and so it makes it easy. So it's open floor space and you can park things randomly there. So it happens a lot in those kinds of spaces. The garage itself, like somebody mentioned earlier, a portion of the garage where things get dumped. Lots of people find the garage is unworthy of organization and planning, so it looks a mess pretty often. That's not a surprise. The shed in the backyard, the one that held all the yard tools, and over time became the black hole of outdoor storage. That shed is always, it's always the intention. I'm going to put something thoughtful and purposeful in there. And then it becomes we can go shove it in the shed and nobody will have to look at it place.
Yeah.
100%.
My grandparents, at their place down on the water, in Baltimore, had two such sheds. One of them attached to the pier that you looked a lot like the
right. Here's the
background
pier
behind us today, except there was no keep out sign. But the shed was full of rusty tools and lengths of rope and dangerous sharp things and
right.
rusty fish hooks. Rust was kind of a theme. Rust and decaying wood.
Because they were hanging out over the water,
Yeah,
man.
they were next to brackish water, and so everything was just decaying at a phenomenal pace and had been for decades. And
Oh,
so I loved to explore the shacks, which smelled like mildew and
fish
decay
probably.
and a little bit of fish, a little touch of fish. Yeah. So a big,
Let's see the perfect example. That's a perfect
it was
example.
massive, massive work for my cousin and uncle to clear out when they eventually sold Grandma's house.
Right? And had to empty it. I can't imagine that must have
Yeah,
been. Can you
huge
imagine emptying it
project,
all and then having to
huge.
haul it all up the pier and out somewhere to be dumped? That must have
Yeah.
been a physical nightmare to do, right? Okay, so what are the characteristics that all of these examples have in common? They're full of deferred decisions. Things are dropped there because it would take too long to handle the stuff. Things are too annoying to deal with. Things that you don't know how to process. So parking it is better than trying to figure it out. They represent stagnant or problematic emotions, the stuff that's likely to make you cry or get super angry. So things that you've inherited, brought home from a job that maybe you lost, left over from your childhood, moved with you during divorce. I remember a client said to me last week, I picked up this piece of paper, a folder with some papers in it, and I said, "What is this?" And she said, "Oh, that those people, it went bad. Those people ripped me off. Something happened." And I was like, "So why are you keeping it as an homage to a time when you got angry? Like, what's the point? Why
Right.
would you hold on to something like that?" And she, her initial response was, "That's the that's the stuff that reminds me of the time that I got taken advantage of, basically." And and we need to keep that. And I'm like, why would you keep an homage to a time when you felt like you were hurt and treated badly? Like, let's not put energy in that. So
Yeah.
she sort of looked at me. She's like, okay, okay. And she let me, put it in the shred pile. And so I was glad to pull that out of her house. But I do encounter that a lot. Okay. Leaving things parked in a crazy or haphazard way that does not impact your daily life runs because because you don't have to use this space to function. So you can park things in this area and it can be ignored there and it's not going to slow down your life. Also, there's never any thought given to planning the room or the space as a storage area, so things are just randomly thrown in there as needed over time without much conscious thought about finding something in there or retrieving something later. And it represents the room that catches everything when you run out of capacity. When you're too tired to go on, or too emotional, or too confused, the stuff goes in the personal space of shame. That's where you go park it when you're like, I am done. I'm over it. I can't deal with this. This is too overwhelming. This is too much. And it goes and gets stuffed in that corner. So, how do these spaces get this way? One of them is, like we mentioned earlier, you have unfinished moving business because you're too tired by the time the move day was over, and the movers have thrown all of the boxes into your house, and you're like, oh yeah, we just spent 2 months packing, and now I have to unpack, and you're exhausted, and no. So you put in a certain amount of effort to unpack to get yourself as far as you can. And then you have to go back to work, or you are running out of steam, or you can't think about it anymore and you want to stop. And so there's certain amounts of boxes that get left behind, left unfinished. And like my boxes in the closet down the hall, they get parked in a corner somewhere and ignored, and then they stay there for a while. That's a original seed of a lot of junk rooms.
Mm-hmm.
Also the stuff that you hid because company was coming and you needed to stash it fast. So, oh my God, we're having a party this week. And maybe for a month that you're having a party and you keep saying, oh, I got to clean that up. And then it's the night before the party and you haven't done everything you wanted to do. And so then the solution is scoop, 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 box, shove in order to get it out of the way in the fastest way possible. So sometimes we just stash it fast because we're out of time and people are coming and we don't want them to see everything. Sometimes you hide things from your spouse. So the artwork that they hate, those purchases you promised you wouldn't buy, the things that they requested you give away, but you can't bear to do that. So sometimes people stash things from other people that they live with because the instructions to deal with them are, I don't like that, get rid of it, I don't want to look at it. And the only way you can do it is to go hide it somewhere. So sometimes people do that. You may have a guest come to stay in the house. So if you have a friend coming for a week, or you're throwing a party, or your book club is coming to your house finally, and you just don't have time to manage the stuff laying around. So these are all situations that see the beginning of a junk room. And I would say the biggest culprit is moving. Like there's always some room that becomes, I would think of it as ground zero.
Yeah.
Where you start putting away everywhere else.
Yeah.
And then you're left with, this is the room where I'm parking everything that doesn't go somewhere else and I'm not dealing with it yet.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest builder of a junk room. But also I would say another one is if you have kids and then the kids grow up and go out, then you have a room that's been used for a reason and suddenly is no longer occupied. When a room suddenly becomes unoccupied, it becomes a parking space all of a sudden. It's like, oh, I have free space that nobody's getting into and nobody's using. I can go stick it in there. And so
Connie commented on that phenomenon. She says, we have an X room, she calls it the X room, renamed after we used to call it Room of Doom, renamed to make us feel more positive about it. It used to be our daughter's room, now filled with boxes and bags to deal with later.
Oh, there you go. That's the deferred decision part of the process, right?
Yeah.
I'll deal with it later, and I'm going to go park it in this room that nobody's using, and then I can close the door and forget about it, right? So, yeah. And, I have to say that once you start doing that, then it becomes, well, that was so much easier than actually dealing with the stuff. Let's make that choice every time. Like, it becomes easy for the default to be stash and ignore, because that is the shortest, fastest way to get it out of your face. And then you end up with a room that's completely full of bags of, oh my God, why did I shove this in here? So, yeah, there you go. So, what's working in your favor when you decide to declutter a personal space of shame? Actually, I know this room, typically, this space, the junk drawer, whatever it is, the cabinet, it typically looks really hard, but it has some great perks going for it. The room isn't already, it's already not being used, it's already being ignored. So you can work on it over time and you won't disrupt your regular life by starting and stopping this project. A lot of times people get disrupted when they start decluttering a space that they use all the time. Like if they start the kitchen and they don't get it done and then it's dinner time and they have to stop and make dinner, right? Like
Right.
your daily living and functioning in the rooms that you use interrupt and make stopping a decluttering project in the middle a problem. But for these rooms that aren't being used anyway, it makes it super easy for you to start and stop that room as many times as you want. And you're not disrupting anything in your life otherwise. So that is one of the great perks of working in that room. Another one is that you haven't seen most of this stuff for some time, which means that it's well aged and well marinated. Lots of the stuff you'll find in there has lost its urgency for you and also lost some of its sentimental value. And that makes it easier to release things now. So you will go in there and the bag will have been in there for a year and you'll be like, why did I keep this? Why did I shove this in here? Like it was a hard decision in the moment because it was still fresh. But now a lot of the stuff that's in there has been there so long, you'll be like, yeah, I did that 2 years ago. I don't need to keep this stuff now. Like it becomes very obvious that the things that you had left over that you didn't deal with in the moment are now completely not important to your life. And so you just needed that time and distance. So there's going to be a lot of that in that room because it's been in there for a while and you've been ignoring it for a long time. And
Yeah.
so it's sort of lost some of its endowment effect
Right.
and it's lost some of its urgency and attachment to the actual use of it when you were using it before. And so it makes it super easy to let go of that stuff. And it's not really as dense as you might think because you throw things in there randomly and you stack them haphazardly without any plan for storage other than here's an empty spot. The space fills up quickly, but with lots of airspace in between the various additions. Besides that, I'm sure there are a lot of half-filled boxes because you just used the box you had laying around when you added things to the room. These are not very well packed. Usually, they're not well packed boxes. So
Unless they're left over from a move.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I've waded into junk rooms before only to discover half of the boxes barely have anything in them. So the stacks were tall, but they were easily dismantled. And so it'll clear out much faster than it looks like it will because it's not packed with a plan or with completely full boxes or with any thought about it, right? And so
Yeah.
there's a lot more airspace in there than you think. There's also a lot more trash in a room like this, like empty storage boxes, old mail, used shipping containers. That makes it easy to clear out a large part of the room with just a trash bag. When you push things aside to get them out of the way quickly, you don't usually stop to pack things up well or to unpack them well or to go through them to take out the tossable parts first. It all just gets chucked in there willy-nilly. And this kind of stuff is very easy to clear out when you start opening the bags and opening the boxes. It's like, oh, well, half of this is stuffing from the shipping container that I never was going to keep. I just didn't stop to throw it out in the moment. So there's lots of things that are easily discarded and recycled in that point. The things that you find that you want to keep can be staged in the room until you're ready to work out where they should go. Again, because the room isn't being used right now anyway. So it's easy to park your keeps in categories for processing another day. So you can take your time about the keeps. You can work your way across the room, decluttering and pulling out trash, recycling, donation, and have a pile of keeps, and you can be sorting them by categories and still not have a plan for what to do with them or to where they're going to be relocated or if they're going to stay there or whatever. Like you don't have to have the ultimate destination for all those things as you manhandle them in the moment. You can just make those piles and be considering it while you're working your way around the room. And so the fact that you aren't using the room for anything means you can leave those sorted keep piles on the floor until it's time to come back to them. So all of those things are sort of perks of working with that room, and it makes it easier for you to do it than other projects, a more active area in the house. So let's talk about some strategies for decluttering a personal space of shame. And start off by deciding how long you want to work in the room at any point in time. So today's the day, you have an appointment. So how long are you going to do? You're going to work for 3 hours. You're going to work for 90 minutes. Pick your poison. What do you feel up to? What do you feel like you have the capacity for today? And then set an alarm on the phone or the kitchen timer. And when the alarm goes off, wrap up by handling the stuff you've made decisions on regarding donations or trash or recycling and take them out. Then you can come back another day for another session. And a few sessions in the room should help you clear it out. It should make you get you across the room without any trouble. Start at the first thing you find inside the door. When you open the door, if it's a well-aged, well-used room of requirement, if you've been filling it for a long time, there's probably stuff all the way up to the door. So just start at the door. You need to clear a pathway into the room. So uncovering the door is the first priority. If you have to clear out a container, pull out a container into the hall to process the contents, you're going to grab because you can't stand where it is and work on it. So if you need to pull it out and put it in the hallway and work on it, that's fine. Go ahead until you've cleared a pathway into the room. Lots of what you pull out is leaving as trash or donation anyway, and it won't go back in. So the keeps can wait to be relocated or taken back in the room until you've cleared some parking spaces in there. Work your way along one wall or the other from the door. So if you're going in, go to the left or go to the forward, go to the right, whichever way it works.
Or if you're dealing with a closet,
Right.
work from top to bottom.
Right. Same thing. Junk drawer, front to back. And pick up trash, open boxes, put things in keep and toss piles. And toss is a generic term that covers three different options. You're going to give it away, you're going to recycle it, you're going to trash it. You may have to move things around to keep working, but do this only when you need better access or the thing that you're moving is going to stay in the room. If it's not staying in the room, take it out. Maybe it'll go into another room or it's going in a giveaway bag in the hallway. As you work, whatever you can move out, get out of there. Make sure you open every box and look at the contents. It's often not what you think it is. Sometimes a box says it's a blender, and then you open it up and the box is holding a bunch of mail instead. Like I said before, you're repurposing boxes that you have on hand to store things in the moment. So there's no guarantee that the outside of the box has anything to do with what's actually in the box. And I've heard a lot of this in junk rooms. I've been looking for that for 2 years. I thought it was stolen. Nah, it was just stuffed in a random box and shoved in the room. So you will find some things that you thought were actually missing that turned out that they just got scooped up in a sweep and thrown into a random box into the room, and you had no idea it was in there. You do need to pick your paper handling strategy for this kind of space. Pick the method that slows you down the least. So either fill an empty box with all the paper you find for sorting later, or cull through the paper as you find it so it gets handled in smaller bites. In either case, if it's obviously trash, throw it out. I would say that pulling the obvious trash is a quick way to reduce the volume, and then box the rest for fine sorting when the rest of the room is done. It'll take a while to go through it all, and it stands alone as a project all by itself. Sorting paperwork and making decisions about all those papers, it's its own kind of a project, right? So you don't want to be diverted from your room of requirement clearing by having to deal with a bunch of paper as a paper project focus. So I would see if you can reduce the volume, pull out the trash if it's obvious, and then otherwise that is just one of the categories of things that you collect for, secondary round. Lastly, I would say be a ruthless judge of those contents. You've already stalled on making a decision about these items. That's why they got parked in there in the first place. So it's time to make a choice, keep or toss, and then execute that choice. Remember, if it's in the junk room, it hasn't seen the light of day for some time, and these things are clearly on their last leg. It needs a really good reason to stay. These items have stayed at the party too long. They need to leave so you can have some peace in that room. So be super ruthless. Don't let yourself think about it too long, and don't be saving a bunch of stuff you don't need to save. Now's the time. You're unpacking all those deferred decisions, and you need to make a decision now. It's time. And it won't be as hard as you think, I promise.
Okay,
Okay,
let's look at some comments.
jump in.
Let's see. I want to go back to uh, Deborah said, I have a Monica's closet. That's a reference to Friends. Monica's personal space of shame was that
Oh,
closet's
that's right. She had a
completely
closet that she
stuffed
hid.
top to bottom.
Yes.
Um, Deborah says, I have a Monica's closet, a section of my freestanding wardrobe, but my recent move means that each closed area needs to be assessed and organized.
Because you got to pack it.
She's already ahead of us in
Mm,
being ready to face her personal space of shame.
go team
Um,
go.
May says, my spare bedroom became filled with the onset of COVID. I thought items would grow scarce as manufacturing and shipping jobs almost ceased. Now what to do?
Now you have a lot of extra, right?
Yeah, a lot of backlog. Well,
So go
you could
ahead.
start. I was going to say you could start with. I'm sort of assuming that you're not keeping food in here, but if you are, if any of it is food items, check your expiration dates. I
And
that
if it's getting close, I would. Oh, no food. She says, good.
No food.
Okay.
Oh, okay,
I would
okay.
just say in general to anybody else, if you have a collection of food that is overwhelming, and it's approaching an expiration date, it's time to send it off to the food pantry and just donate it to a food pantry and let somebody use it so that it doesn't get thrown out.
But
Because
even with for things with a longer shelf life, um, now might be a good time to evaluate. Okay, I had this many of these things that I got back in 2000 or I mean 2020 or 2021, and I still have this many left. And if you do the math on that and you still have
it's
a
been 6 years.
10-year supply left, you might consider donating some of it. If you feel an urgency to make your spare bedroom back into a spare bedroom.
Right. And yeah, and if there's that much that's there, it's like, hand it, you can hand it out to family members, you can hand it out to friends, you can take it and donate it to, depending on what it is. Like the kinds of things that we bought were extra toilet paper. Like, it was
There
cleaning
were
supplies.
cleaning
Like there's
supplies.
tons
It was
of
tough to get ammonia and
sanitizer and yeah, all that kind of stuff.
chloride and yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that could go and be useful in a classroom, for instance. Like
Hmm.
teachers are still using hand sanitizer with their kids because they're trying to keep from getting sick all the time. There's all kinds of cleaning needs that can be addressed in a school. So that's the kind of stuff that you can go and think about where institutionally they need support. Maybe there's a small nonprofit that needs some of your cleaning supplies for their building, their offices, their fill in the blank. So think about somebody, if you haven't gone through it in 6 years, you're probably looking at a lifetime supply. You can cut that supply in half, or take three-quarters of it out, and you can have a backstock. You can still keep a backstock of those things, but it doesn't have to be in multiples of 10, right?
Yeah.
You can let some of it go.
Um, Diane says, I hide all kinds of stuff, but now don't remember where it is now.
Right? The definition of being hidden, right? You've hidden it from yourself.
And Terry says, sometimes I find things I had put in a special place and it's a nice surprise, like finding money in the pocket of an old garment. But it would be nice to have things available when I wanted them, not when they surprised me months later.
Right? And finding money is always entertaining, except that then it makes me think, wow, you didn't notice that you were missing $100? How did you miss that? But it happens, right?
Um,
There's always something that you stash that you forget about, and it's having the target of arranging things. That's the point of organizing, right? So that you know what you have, you know where it is, you know how to find it, and it's not difficult. That's what you're aiming for.
Pat says, depending on how you may want to actually use the X room, you might consider plastic shelving units to limit what you keep. So
Mm-hmm.
establishing some containers.
Right. And who knows how the room was set up? Like the person who said it was the daughter's room, so it was set up to be the daughter's bedroom at some point, and it hasn't been reclaimed to be something else yet. Some people, it was set up as a craft room and then it got buried. Some people like it got set up as a guest room. We wanted to be able to have guests, and then it got buried. Like there may be some underlying function to the room when it was originally set up that you may want to reclaim, or you may want to reevaluate. Well, we set it up as a guest room, but we don't actually have guests over. We always go to
Right.
them. Like the
Yeah.
family doesn't come here, we go there. So then it's like, okay, so does it need to be a guest room? Can it be something else? And part of spurring you on to get the room of requirement cleared out to get this, junk room undone is imagining, what kind of a room would it be fun to have instead? What would you use it for? What could you have it for to change it from a storage space to a place where you would actually be using it for something and see what you come up with.
Suzanne says, I already forgot the title. Forget the title of this day. Out of sight, out of mind. Actually, it was out of sight, on your mind. And she says, if so, oof, I have so much in addition to the blind clutter.
You have so much out of sight, out of mind.
Well, so much stuff in addition to the stuff that's out of sight.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. She says, oh, Rooms of Doom. We'll be listening a few times to get this into my thick head.
Oh, go team, go. I mean, we all understand there is no one listening that does not completely understand the impulse of here's a little nook and cranny that I can stick stuff in and then not think about this right now, which is where exactly what I want to be doing and not thinking about this. And
Yeah.
so we totally get the impulse to park things in a corner and walk away. And it's just that over time that becomes a space that then looks like a black hole, feels super overwhelming, and hides way too much of your stuff. And so, it's worth shining a light on it, digging it out, and realizing, yeah, my tendency is to forget about this stuff or to default to the fastest, easiest way to deal with this. I mean, one change of behavior I'm thinking of immediately is you get a shipping container into the house, somebody drops something off, you open the cardboard box, and what's in there? The thing you bought, and packing materials, and there's some kind of invoice or packing list or something stuffed in there. There may be promotional materials. There may be, like ads that they send you, or catalogs, brochures, whatever. And it all comes out. And so you're in the rush to get it open. You pull out the thing that you want, and then you're left with all this detritus. And so if you go and take that and throw that into the corner of the garage where all boxes go to die, then you can do that and be done with the box immediately. Or you can stop and go, okay, I need to now. The other part of the convenience of having it shipped to my house is that I then have to deal with the boxes and the contents of the boxes that were just there for shipping. And
Right.
so that means I got to go put that wadded up paper in recycling, or I have to go take those plastic things and poke the air out of them and throw them in the trash. I got to go take this box and break it down and shove it in the recycling bin. Like all of those things are part of, you can handle it now, or you can shove it in the room in the corner, and then you have to dig it out, over a week period sometime in your future. And isn't it easier to change your behavior? I get the thing out that I had shipped to me, and I spend 10 minutes dealing with the shipping container, right?
Yeah.
And so it just it, that room that you stuff things in, that drawer that you stuff things in, that closet that you stuff things in, just becomes a mirror of the decisions of processing and handling that you haven't thought through and made changes around for it to work better. And so it will be a, what's the word I'm looking for, Ed? It'll be a gallery of all of the things, the ways that you do things that are short and fast, but create clutter instead of eliminate clutter.
Yeah.
And you'll be learning all about yourself about how you make that happen on the regular. So it'll be a way for you to learn and figure out, oh, I have a problem processing these boxes. I don't do it well, or
Yeah.
I have a problem with paper or mail, and therefore I stuff it rather than deal with it. It'll be obvious
Yeah.
what's hanging you
Or
up in
left,
regular
or
life.
I think another big category here is leftovers of projects, either unfinished
Yes.
projects or bits
Yes.
and pieces that went with a project that you didn't need for it, and but you maybe will use them later. Who knows?
Yeah, well, and I think people in that moment decide, oh, am I going to have this stuff later? Am I going to need this? And they feel uncomfortable making a decision in the moment.
Right,
And so then it gets shoved aside. It's like, yeah, the IKEA slim wrench, right? Like, everybody gets that little wrench that's like the shape of an upside down L. And
right.
what are those called?
It's an Allen wrench.
Thank you, an Allen wrench.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Naomi says, I have a problem with an overstuffed purse because I have a pencil case of requirement.
Oh. So the pencil case is your overstuffed portion of your purse. Yeah, so that's one that I think depending on how old you are, it starts to be a problem when your purse starts to be like a walking dumbbell in terms of weight. Like when you're carrying around 20 pounds on your shoulder or in your hand, it starts to be a problem as you get older. So, deciding that you're trying to manage the amount of weight that you carry on a daily basis is worth it. And so, taking that pencil box out and filtering it for contents all the time, I think is a good thing to do.
Diane says, I was looking for photos for my brother's funeral, so things are kind of scattered, but now I don't have the energy to put them away.
Well, and you're grieving and you've suffered a loss. And so the chaos that happens when somebody passes away and you have to plan the funeral, it that's all of the flurry of activity that you have to do despite your grief and despite your shock and despite your distress. And so you muster it up to make the funeral happen, and then you're left with the aftermath afterwards. And I would say give yourself a moment of grace, give yourself time. If the best that you can do is stack it up in a box and put it in the corner until later, get it out of your face so you're not tripping on it, and you're not living with total chaos. And, give yourself a few months and see if you can go look at the box again. And, if you have to do that for a year until you're ready to look at that stuff, I mean, it's about a funeral. It's about somebody that passed away. And so,
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense if that is hard for a while. And just know that, you'll get to a place where it might be sad to look at it, but it won't be impossible. And in the meantime, you can give yourself the grace to go, okay, I can't really deal with that right now. It'll be
Okay.
okay.
I'm going to give the final comment to Linda, who says, when I don't know what to do with an item, I train myself to think first about making it leave the house now rather than squirreling it away somewhere. This is
Mm.
helping, but a real mind shift, so a struggle for this old mind.
But good job that you're conscious about making that a
A
focused
shift.
choice in the
Mhm.
moment. Like that's exactly what you need to be doing. And you may not always win, right? Like you may not be able to figure out how to get it out of the house in the moment, but just the fact that you're going through the exercise as much as you can is eliminating some stuff that you would normally be squirreling away. And so good for you that you're changing your behavior. And we don't care about 100% compliance. We just care about, you're making the effort to try to do it differently. And that rewards you over time. You get better at it and better at it as you practice. And so this is you practicing, and good job. And we're proud of you. Yay.
Okay, Gail, any final thoughts on this topic?
I do. I know these types of projects look like they're such a burden to think about tackling, but in truth, they can really be low stress training grounds for decluttering and getting organized. The ability to start and stop without disruption of other parts of your life and the high level of things in the toss category really help these projects run smoother than other areas that are getting a lot more daily use. So think of it as a decluttering practice room and dive in. You'll be honing your skills in a lower stress environment and learning things that you can do in other parts of the house later. So give it a try and come tell us about it later because we want to hear how it went.
Okay, we're running out of time, so I need to talk about the coming weeks. We're going to be off next week. Gail, you're going to be, where are you going for the
Hmm.
NAPO board meeting?
I'm not going anywhere, but
Oh,
we're
not
having
going
it's
anywhere.
it's a virtual
It's
all day
virtual,
meeting.
but
So
in
yeah,
interfering with
I
our
don't
schedule.
always get to, like, if Tuesday's the day that they can make it work for everybody, then I have to bail and join
Yeah,
the. So sorry, I try to not, I try to vote out not Tuesdays, but it doesn't always work.
yeah. We'll be back for our next live show on Tuesday, April 14th.
Yes.
In response to a recent survey, audience member Jules asked, When it comes to decluttering, is there a which came first, the chicken or the egg way of thinking when approaching a project? Sometimes it feels like that. That question got us thinking about challenges we face as we try to declutter and organize, like whether more storage can ever solve the problem of too much stuff. Join
Mhm.
us on April 14th for the chicken or the egg complexities of the organizing process. Gail, why don't you give us the tittle?
This week's title is Shameless Space. This week's assignment is to chip away at the contents of your personal space of shame. Identify a space that meets our definition of a personal space of shame, an out of sight place where you tend to stash stuff rather than store it or hide things that you don't feel ready to deal with. Then schedule an appointment with yourself this week to spend some time processing the contents of the space that you've identified. Anything you do here will be a step forward. So if all you can handle is 5 minutes, then set a timer for 5 minutes and get to work for that. Start by removing the low hanging fruit, the trash, the recyclables, and any items you're willing to donate. And then take anything that belongs elsewhere in your home to its rightful place. Now move on to the stuff that will require the tougher decisions and think about why each item ended up here, why you struggled to decide about it, and whether you might now be ready to let it go. When your alarm goes off, take a few minutes to clean up the space and transport anything you've removed to its ultimate destination. And then you've had your first pass at the room of requirement. And come and tell us about how it went. We would love to hear about it.
If you're watching this on YouTube, we'd love for you to join us live. To get notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook or join our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We'd love to hear from our audience, so please keep your comments, questions, and topic suggestions coming on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere that you find us. You can always reach us through the website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
Thanks everybody for coming this week. I'm sorry that we had to be off last week and we're back and then we're going to have to be off again next week. My apologies. It's just how it shook out this time.
Right?
But we're still here. We're still doing our thing and we still want to hear from you. So we are going to put a survey out for the show that's coming for next week because we want to understand what dichotomies of decluttering you have to struggle with and face. And so we're going to ask you some questions about that. So watch your channels where you're subscribed and see when the survey's out and dive in and give us some answers. We want to hear from you. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.